नाना शास्त्र विचारेक निपुनो सधर्म संस्थापको लोकानां हितकारिणो त्रिभुवने मान्यो शरण्याकरो राधा कृष्ण पदारविंद भजना नंदेन मत्तालिकयो वंदे रूप सनातनो रघुजुगो श्रीजीव गोपालको वंदे रूप सनातनो रघुजुगो श्रीजीव गोपालको. So today we have a little surprise for all of you. In our shloka recitation, we are adding 4 new shlokas for all of you. So we have already kind of, how many of you, by the way, have learned all those 4 shlokas that we were discussing until now? This is the 10th episode. So probably many of us, right, have probably learned those shlokas. So good. We're going to have 4 new shlokas for all of you for today. Hare Krishna. Let's start with it. All right. Kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya bhava sa sadhana vidha nitya siddhasya bhavasya prakatyam hidi sadhyatha. I'll briefly tell you the meaning of it. And these are the shlokas on which we have had elaborate discussion in the previous sessions. So, Kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya, which means the bhakti bhavet sadhya. This is a definition of sadhana bhakti, where the bhava bhakti is accomplished through the function of senses. So, the goal of sadhana bhakti is sadhya bhakti, which is bhava or prema, which is accomplished kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya bhava sa sadhana vidha, by the engagement of senses. That is called as sadhana bhakti. Next shloka. This is again an important shloka, very, very important shloka we have discussed several times. The essence of all instructions. Smartavya satatam Vishnu vismartavyo na jatuchit sarve vidhi nishedhasyo etayoreva kinkaraha. So this shloka means smartavyo. One should always remember Krishna, vismartavyo na jatuchit, and one should never forget Krishna. Sarve vidhi nishedh. The purpose of all the do's and don'ts of all the scriptures are subservient to these 2 principles. What is that? Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. The third new shloka. Tasmad gurum prapadyeta jigyasu shreya uttamam shabde parecha nishnatam brahmani upashamashrayam. So one who desires real happiness, he should go and find a bona fide guru and take shelter. Therefore, tasmad, therefore, gurum, prapadyeta. One should take shelter of a guru. Who should take shelter of a guru? Jigyasu shreya uttamam. One who is desirous of one's ultimate perfection or real happiness, either way. And what are the qualifications of a guru? Shabde pare chanishnatam brahmani upashamashrayam. The one who has taken a complete shelter of the Supreme Personality Godhead. Shabde pare chanishnatam, whose consciousness is completely absorbed or soaked with the spiritual vibration. That is the meaning of this shloka. And the last shloka, or the new shloka that we are adding for today onwards in our discussion. Bhakti against scriptures is disturbance. We'll be discussing it today. Shruti smriti puranadi pancharatra vidhim vina aikanta ki harir bhaktir utpatyeva kalpate. Ekant ki harer bhaktir utpat eva kalpate. Any practice of devotional life any practice or spiritual life, either way, if it is against Shruti, Smriti Shastras, Puranas, Pancharatras, if it is not described in Shruti, Smriti, Pancharatras, and Puranas, then such practice of bhakti only causes nuisance to oneself and to the society. So these are the 4 shlokas that we are adding in, and we'll share more details about it on the group. So let's begin our discussion on the chapter 7 of Nectar of Devotion, how to discharge devotional service. Let's do a quick recap of what we have discussed so far. In chapter number 5, we discussed, as Srila Rupa Goswami discussed, that bhakti is all independent of your birth, independent of the practice of varnashram dharma. In essence, the idea of the discussion was anyone can take to Krishna consciousness and perfect is his or her life. What it means is only bhakti is the process which does not have any prerequisites. For any marg, for anything even in this material world, for everything there are prerequisites. But for bhakti there is no prerequisites. Anyone in any situation can take to bhakti and perfect one's life. In other words, bhakti does not depend on any material factor. Bhakti depends on bhakti. Therefore, how does bhakti rise in the heart of a living entity? By the association of a bhakta. So that sums up the whole discussion here. And then chapter 6, now after describing until chapter 5 elaborately what is bhakti, now chapter 6 onwards, the practicalities of sadhana bhakti are discussed. So in chapter 6, Srila Rupa Goswami shortlisted 64 vital practices or limbs of bhakti from the writings of Sanatan Goswami, titled as Hari Bhakti Vilas. And now from chapter 7 onwards, we are going to have a discussion on these items, the items which are described in chapter 7. So how to discharge devotional service? There are 64 items. So today we'll see if we can cover the 20 items of importance, where there are 10 items which we should follow, pravati karma, and there are 10 nivritti karma which should be given in. So we'll begin our discussion from chapter 7 for today, where there are almost close to 18 items are discussed. The first 10 pravritti karma and then 8 nivritti karma. And the chapter 8, if you take a look in your book, yes, in chapter 8, title as offenses to be avoided. In that, only one item is discussed, which is aprad, or to avoid aprad. So let's see what all we can discuss in the given time frame. At least we'll definitely cover chapter 7 for today. So all of you, I would request, have a book with you in your hand. And when we talk about the 64 principles as we're discussing, you can also mark the number. So you at least have a, at least track of how many we have discussed. Fine? So let's take a look at presentation, what we have here. We'll go through the presentation and have some discussion on it. So let's begin with very first item, Guru Pad Ashraya, taking shelter of Guru. Reading from the slide deck, Srila Rupa Goswami lists the most crucial item first, and that is to take shelter of a bona fide Guru. Following this one principle opens the door to all the 63 other items of sadhana. Why? Because it is a spiritual master who instructs one about the execution and significance of rest of the 63 items. The importance of this item becomes clearer by considering the evidence that Srila Rupa Goswami quotes to substantiate the importance of accepting Guru. So this is the verse that we had added today in your shloka recitation. Tasmad gurum prapadyeta jikyasu shreya uttamam shabde pare chanishnatam brahmani upashamashrayam. So we'll have a little discussion on this, but before that, let's go back to the book. If you open the book and if you see the first paragraph and the last few lines of the first paragraph, Prabhupada mentions, everyone should try to find such a bona fide spiritual master in order to fulfill his mission of life, and which is to transfer himself to the plane of spiritual bliss. And then Prabhupada talks about in the second paragraph, that how one should find a bona fide guru, not find a fool as a guru. And what are the qualifications of guru? That this shloka that we just quoted, or quoted by Srila Rupa Goswami, talks about. The one who is bona fide, comes in parampara, and is always absorbed in spiritual vibration. And then Prabhupada in the concluding line mentioned, one who is fortunate enough to come under the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master is sure to traverse the path of spiritual salvation without any doubt. So the first point is to accept the shelter of a bona fide guru. So the very first question that arises here is, when should we accept guru? Prabhupada writes in his explanation, we should seek out a spiritual master when one is disgusted from material life. Then why to select a guru? Because only under the guidance of a spiritual master, one can approach transcendence or the absolute truth. The spiritual master establishes our connection. First thing is that. And second point, the education, the shiksha, which is very important aspect of diksha. Through shiksha, we understand our position and the position of the supreme or absolute truth. And the third point that Prabhupada mentioned in this discussion, who is a guru, Shabde Parecha Nishnatam, who has taken complete shelter of the spiritual sound and is fully dedicated to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is not which is just merely an instruction. When Lord incarnates or Lord appears in this world, He Himself accepts spiritual master. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted Ishwarpuri, and although he didn't needed or required a spiritual master, and when he was asked, what did you learn from your spiritual master, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would always say that my spiritual master told me I am a fool, I am not qualified to study Vedic scriptures. Therefore, he asked me, only chant Hare Krishna and you'll go back to Godhead. And like that, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would speak. Similarly, we see either Lord Shri Krishna or Lord Ram, anyone for that reason, everyone accepted spiritual master. That's about the Supreme Personality Godhead. And if we talk about the best of the acharyas, the greatest acharyas, everyone accepted the spiritual master. So, in our case, if we talk about, okay, we have it on the slide deck actually, more discussion. So, what is the purpose, or how do we approach a spiritual master? As you see in a slide, in Mundaka Upanishad, it is described when to approach a spiritual master. Tad vijnanartham sagurameva vigachat samitpani shrotriyam brahmanishtam. To understand these things properly, one must humbly approach with firewood in hand a spiritual master who is learned in the Vedas and firmly devoted to the absolute truth, can guide us back to home, back to Godhead. So, in conclusion, the one who feels an urgent need or necessity of spiritual life, who is disgusted from material endeavors, should seek out a genuine spiritual master to establish one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. So, that's the first point of all the principles. Now, the second. What should we do after accepting a spiritual master? That is the second principle. Tasmat Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam. Then after initiation comes Shiksha. After Diksha comes Shiksha. In other words, it's not that after Diksha comes Shiksha, but Diksha is not the end of spiritual life. Diksha is, as it called, Diksha in English it is called initiation, which means it's a starting of a spiritual life. So, reading out what is there on the slide deck. After rejecting material life and taking shelter of spiritual master, one must accept him with full faith. Diksha is a formal acceptance of the disciple's commitment and faith. Without this commitment, a disciple cannot possess the unyielding faith required to properly assimilate the spiritual instructions of this Guru. Srila Prabhupada explains, one should learn Srimad Bhagavatam seriously and with all respect and veneration from the spiritual master. So let me ask a question to all of you. According to you, what is more important, Diksha or Shiksha? Any thoughts? What is more important, Diksha or Shiksha? Let me just define the word Diksha. What does Diksha means? Dik means divine knowledge. Sha destroys sinful reaction. Shat. So Diksha in itself means by which you get access to transcendence or the spiritual knowledge, and that destroys our sinful reaction. So here it says, Tasmat Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam. Diksha is not the end of spiritual life. Diksha is just like a starting point. It's a formal acceptance of a student by a guru. Just like, somebody wants, he can study by himself and become a doctor. Or else he can go and take a formal admission in a college, medical college, and then graduate with a degree. What will be more important? To get educated under a professional medical practitioners, or to get trained up by one's own reading? So as Prabhupada mentioned, Diksha means formal acceptance of a disciple by Guru.
Shiksha is more important. At one place, Prabhupada says, if one is chanting 16 rounds, he is already initiated.
Okay.
Diksha is like a formality to formally announce him as a disciple.
Okay. Nitai Pran Prabhu, unmute.
Yes, Rohit. So, it feels like Diksha is more important because the intent of Shiksha is to know that Diksha is so important. Yeah, that's correct. But to approach Krishna through Guru is
correct.
Way.
So you have Shiksha Guru also, right?
Yeah, that's correct. But Shiksha Guru isn't kind of accepting that responsibility of taking you back to Godhead.
Okay, good point. So how does it happen? Good point. Okay, let's hear one or two points. Good point, Anshul Prabhu. Okay, let's go back to Nitai Pran Prabhu. Let's try if it's working for you.
Diksha, because you establish connection to the spiritual master with the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Okay.
Diksha is important. It's a starting point.
But you have to understand. Okay, fine. But what would you do alone with Diksha if the Shiksha is not given?
Diksha is followed by Shiksha. When you take Diksha, Shiksha is given at that time because spiritual master is also a Shiksha.
Okay.
Prabhupada is a preeminent Shiksha.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandatam. Can you hear me?
Yes, quite well.
Yes, Prabhu, I echo Nitai Pran Prabhu and Rati Manjari Mataji said. So, Diksha is more important because as it is mentioned that spiritual master gives us the Gnan Chakshu, which and it connects us with the Parampara, which takes us back to Godhead, and obviously spiritual master gives us the right knowledge. So, Shiksha is always important.
So when you're talking about Diksha, if you see, your Diksha is inherently involving Shiksha also. When you say the Guru gives Jnana Chakshu, then it means that Jnana Chakshu is what? It's Shiksha. So that's the point. So I'll make some cases here to elaborate this point. So Diksha, for example, let's say in our case in ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada is our eminent Shiksha Guru for all the time to come, right? So Diksha is important, is essential, but Diksha is not complete in itself if there is no opportunity for Shiksha. If Shiksha has not been provided or the facility is not created, then Diksha would not suffice by itself. Now, let's take a scenario. We are not saying what is important, what is not important. Diksha is essential, no doubt about it. But we are saying Diksha is incomplete if there is no Shiksha. For example, in the history, we have had cases, and history repeats, it could happen in future also, where maybe due to certain circumstances, the initiating guru might have to step away from his responsibility, right? So now if that initiating guru step away from his responsibility of accepting any more disciples, and guiding the existing disciples, then what happens to those disciples? Therefore, Shiksha becomes very, very important. And therefore, the GBC has been emphasizing a lot that Srila Prabhupada is our preeminent Shiksha Guru. Even if once Diksha has established our connection, if Guru for some reason has to step aside, has to take a break, then our connection continues. And Diksha Guru as such is one, but Shiksha Guru could be several. And we continue to learn under them, and our connection with the Lord and our journey back home, back to Godhead continues. There's no full stop to that. Is that making sense? That's the point I just wanted to highlight here. So there what is mentioned in this point, Tasmat Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam. After initiation, acquiring knowledge. So what do disciple do after accepting Guru? So which means Shiksha. He continues to accept Shiksha. That's the point. Diksha is not the end of spiritual life. Diksha is the beginning of spiritual life. In case of ISKCON, today, we'll be discussing other points also in context of our situation. Not necessarily Diksha and Shiksha Guru would be same. In our scenario, we could have a Diksha Guru as one, and then we could have some other Shiksha Gurus. Now, traditionally, even if you see up to the time of Goswamis, the disciple would go and ask Diksha Guru, whom I should accept, Shiksha Guru. And with the permission of Diksha Guru, you will accept Shiksha Guru. But how many have that opportunity to talk to their spiritual master today? Yes. So, Prabhupada have created ISKCON as an institution, ISKCON as a family. And there is a governing body. And then there, you have this instituted programs like Bhakti, Shastri, etc., etc. So those who are in good standing are given an opportunity to lead, and they're given certain positions by which they can offer certain services to offer shiksha or offer training to students or to devotees. So under them, because we all are following Srila Prabhupada, regardless of with whichever guru we are initiated, all of us are grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So that's how we can take shiksha. But if somebody has an opportunity, traditionally the means is we should always ask our Diksha Guru, whom should I accept Shiksha Guru? So that, that Shiksha line brings us more closer to what spiritual master wants us to do. And that's the process of it. Fine. Let's move forward to the next point of discussion here. Okay. Then, third point, serve Guru with respect. Before we go to this thing, let me ask this question. The very first point said, accept Guru. We should accept Guru. How do we accept Guru in ISKCON? Traditionally, the culture of accepting a Guru was the disciple would go and stay with the Guru for 6 months to 1 year, and disciple will observe a Guru, and then Guru would observe disciple. And then disciple would say, okay, I would like to take initiation from you, and the Guru would say, okay, I have observed you, you're a sincere practitioner, let me give initiation. How does it work in ISKCON today? What is the process? In ISKCON, it works, you're connected with the temple, and the temple recommends. So the responsibility of observing a disciple is delegated to a temple leadership, right? So spiritual master, in some cases, or maybe most of the cases in today's scenario, would not be or may not be in direct touch with a disciple. So here the temple leader, who has been given this authority on behalf of the spiritual master, who observes, not only observes, it is a temple authority who also engages. It's very important. It's not that if you take Diksha from a spiritual master, then you go and ask spiritual master, what service should I do? It should also go through that temple leader, isn't it? So if temple leader recommending your name for initiation, then it is a temple leader who should be caring for you, taking care of you in your spiritual life, because that's the person who is recommending you. That's the process, how it follows in ISKCON. So that responsibility of observing a disciple has been delegated to a second level or second layer of leaders. And they, once they see, they engages, they educate, they arrange for our shiksha, they arrange for our sadhana, they arrange for our seva. And when they see the disciple or the prospective student is doing properly, then the name is recommended to the Guru. How many of you met your Guru only at the time of initiation and never before. Raise your hand. You only met at the time of initiation. You getting the point? Which means through the process you were recommended. And that's how we follow. All right. I hope this is clear. Okay, let's move forward. Point number 3, which Srila Rupa Goswami mentions, Vishambhena Guru Seva. Service to Guru with respect. Somebody would like to read what's there on the slide? Okay, let's do one thing because I have a couple of things on the slide deck. Rather than asking every different devotee, I can have one reading partner here. Whoever would like to read through, they can join. All right. Anshul, I'll go with you because your sound was clear and loud. Okay, go ahead. Read out, Anshul, bro.
Srila Rupa Goswami supports this with a famous verse in which Krishna states that the Acharya should be accepted as the Lord's very self. Understanding the importance of service to the Supreme Lord and knowing the spiritual master to be non-different from him, the disciple must serve the Guru with strong faith.
So, you know how the sequence is going on. First, accept Guru. Then, after that, accepting the Guru, identifying the Guru, shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, and then accept Shiksha from him. And the third point is serve the spiritual master. This is nothing but tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya upadeshanti te jnanam gnaninas tattva darshana. Clear? That's the point going on. Now my question is, how to serve Guru? If you look into this discussion, it is said, the Guru should be accepted as a Lord's very self, non-different than the Lord. In other words, the respect should be given onto that level. So how do we serve Guru with respect, or to be able to have respect for Guru in that capacity? And the answer lies in, it happens when we hear from him. The sadhu is known not by his dressing, not by his hairstyle. Sadhu is known by his vani. When we hear from Guru, that is a time that level of respect develops. Now somebody may say, but what to do? We don't get opportunity to serve Guru in ISKCON, right? Service to Guru is being described here. So how many of you agree, or how many of you do not have direct service opportunity to Guru? Raise your hands, please. So how do you follow? How are we following this principle in ISKCON? Service to Guru. How would you? Somebody would like to explain this? How is this applied? How is it practiced or followed? Okay, Mother Sneha, your hand is up. You would like to give an answer?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I think that is it audible?
Yes, Mother, please go ahead. Actually, there was a lot of noise outside here. Go ahead.
I think that is done through our counselors these days. The counselor helps us to understand how we can serve our Guru.
Correct. So two things, rightly said, and I made this point prior to this slide also, that ideally we should be connected with some local community. If we have a ISKCON temple, ISKCON center, be connected there, and we should take up some service there. And through that, we are serving our spiritual master. What does our spiritual master want? He wants to serve ISKCON community, isn't it? So when we are connected to a particular ISKCON center and serving there, we are serving the ISKCON, we are serving Srila Prabhupada, and we are serving our spiritual master. Of course, it does not mean if an opportunity arises to meet spiritual master, we should always ask, can I serve you? We should always look forward for that an opportunity. If it comes, we should always grab it. But if it doesn't happen, then so be it. Srila Prabhupada have given us some ubiquitous way of serving, like book distribution. Even if you don't have any ISKCON center nearby, order some books from BBT and go out and do book distribution. Host a program, do prasadam distribution. And when you do all this thing, you make some devotees and go for Harinam Sankirtan, isn't it? Everyone can serve. So that's the way we can do the service, all right? Okay, so let's go to the fourth point. Sadhu Vartamanu Vartanam. Following the rules according to the scriptures as approved by Acharyas. Anshul Pro, go ahead. Reading.
We must follow not only our own spiritual master, but all bona fide sadhus and acharyas in the line of disciplic succession. there should be no dissension between the Guru's teachings and the teachings of Guru Parampara. Since the qualification of the bona fide Guru is that he represents these scriptures strictly according to Guru Parampara. If he doesn't, adherence to him is not devotional service. Lord Buddha is an example. Even though he is the personality of Godhead himself, his followers are not practicing pure devotional service because, for circumstantial reasons, Buddha did not strictly present the scriptures according to Guru Parampara.
Hare Krishna. So this point mentions following in the footsteps of saintly persons or learning from sadhus. So earlier it was easy when it was said, follow Guru, learn from the spiritual master. Now it is said, learn from sadhus. As generally we say, Guru, Sadhu and Shastras. And even in this case, Prabhupada quotes an example of Buddha. Although Buddha is an incarnation of Lord, but we do not follow the teachings of Buddha. We don't follow, right? Because Buddha gave up Vedic scriptures. He denounced Vedic scriptures. But we don't follow Buddha's teachings because how do we understand that? We understand through the acharyas, through the sadhus. And sadhus guide us what is right and what is wrong. So let me ask this question. So we should follow sadhus. So what if there is a conflict of interest between the instruction of your mentor or your temple leader and Guru? How would you reconcile? Because according to this fourth principle, you should follow sadhus. Now both are sadhus. How would you reconcile? Okay, Nitai Prantu. I hope your sound is fixed now.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, quite good, very good, nice.
In case if there is a conflict, what I think it's better to refer to the Shastra.
How would you refer to Shastra? Reconcile. You understand Shastra through the sadhu. How would you do that? Isn't that? See, the point is you understand Shastra through sadhu. Therefore, Prabhupada quote an example of Buddha. Why we don't follow the teachings of Buddha? Because that's what the acharyas have explained us. So you say you go back to scriptures to reconcile whom should we follow? The local authority and Guru. That may be very difficult. Yes, Mother, go ahead.
Hari Bol, Pranam Prabhu. Prabhu, when we say there is a difference between two authorities, it could be like we are feeling that there is a difference, but if we go deep, there is actually not difference because both are following the Shastras and serving Srila Prabhupada. So in that case, we should humbly approach to our Guru or to our mentors to get the clarification and then go ahead.
Correct. That's the best way of dealing with it. Clarify. If you have access, of course, you should have easy access to a local leader. And if you have access to your Guru, clarify. And you can otherwise, even if you don't have access of both, go to the local leader and clarify, this is what my Guru have instructed. What should I do? But ideally, it should reconcile with the local leader. Because under that devotee guidance, you're working. Of course, best situation is if both authorities work in conjunction. Then you will not have an issue. And generally it happens. Maybe, of course, we have had a history. I'm not going to go into history of ISKCON in a public forum here now, but we have had a history where the Guru was personally interfering in the lives of disciples. And there's an example comes from America. This particular spiritual master then back in early 80s had a temple somewhere in America. And because of the zonal system in those days, he had disciples in different parts of the world. So for any local center to function, Srila Prabhupada had created a system of independent financial judiciary, which means everyone has his own financial system. So when local devotees are connected to local center, they should be contributing or supporting that particular community. And here the spiritual master went on getting into the lives of all his disciples, and he started asking that I need to build up this temple. So please start contributing. So not only he asked his disciples to directly transfer funds to his project, he engaged his disciple in fundraising in different communities and started diverting of the funds from those communities back to this particularly project without the consultation of other temple authorities. And that led to a big conflict. So of course, those were the days which are gone now, which is not the case now. But that's the point. If it happens, we cannot just say, if for example, temple leader asks us, let's say, We need some pujaris. We are short of pujaris. And let's say somebody's Guru Maharaj emphasizes book distribution. So you can't say, no, my Guru's instruction is 7 days a week, I should go for book distribution. I cannot do DT Seva. You're getting the point now? DT Seva is also service to Prabhupada's mission. And if there is a need, we should take to that. That's the point. Like that. Okay, that's the first point about a conflict that arises or could arise between some two different set of instructions. Second, what if sadhu from another parampara speaks or emphasizes on different aspects than what my spiritual master or what my Shiksha Guru or Srila Prabhupada speaks? And they can also be a great devotees, isn't it? Here the instruction is follow the sadhus. So it's not the sadhus are only within ISKCON. Sadhus are there in different paramparas also. And because of COVID, everyone is online. And everyone is hearing from many sadhus. So what if you are hearing from a sadhu who could be a very advanced devotee but is from another parampara, and his emphasis is on something which is quite different from the emphasis and the instruction given to you by your spiritual master, or let's say what Srila Prabhupada emphasized? How would you reconcile? Is it making sense? Or you're confused about my question? Let's say, for example, you're hearing from somebody from Gaudiya Math or from some other organization. Or let's say Shri Samprada. They're great personality. How would you reconcile in that situation? What would you do? Okay, Mother Rati Manjari, go ahead. See, I'm not sharing a hypothetical case. I'm not going to give you the case study, but these are real incidents, okay? It happens. Yes.
We should follow the spiritual master because we are under the disciplic succession of the Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya, Brahma Madhava Gaudiya.
What if this is happening within our parampara, let's say Gaudiya Math? Same parampara?
Yes, but still we follow the spiritual master because he's our link.
Okay, so loyalty is the point. Correct. We should go back and fall back to those who have brought us to Krishna consciousness and who are taking care of us in our Krishna consciousness. We should go and take their guidance and stick to that. So therefore, loyalty is a very important factor. Okay, great. We'll move forward then. Okay, this was this. Following the rules according to scriptures as approved by Acharyas. Therefore, this is a shloka which Srila Rupa Goswami mentions in this regard. We have had this shloka also for a new addition to the shlokas. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidham Vina Aikantaki Harer Bhakti Utpatyeva Kalvate. Please read out the translation.
Without faithful adherence to the rules of the scripture found in Shruti, Smriti, Puranadi and Pancharatra, one's so-called devotional service is simply a disturbance to society. One must follow the footsteps of devotees who are strictly faithful to Parampara.
Thank you. And now we come to the fifth principle, Sadharma Pracha. Very, very important thing. Inquiry about the real duties of life. Please read out.
The 64 items of sadhana bhakti offer many practical ways to increase our devotional service. One way is to simply make note of the questions that arise during our study and contemplation of Shastra, and put these questions before a senior Vaishnava. This is itself is devotional service.
So, as Lord Shri Krishna says, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So, when it comes to pariprashnena, when you look at the meaning of this word, how Srila Prabhupada and how Acharyas describe, very categorically mentioned pariprashnena. When you're asking an inquiry, when you're asking a question or making an inquiry, it should be about the spiritual subject matters, not about, in which share market I should invest my money, or what color of the car should I purchase, etc., etc. It should not be about mundane affairs. That's the point. All right. So make an inquiry about the real duties of life. But that's not enough in itself. Many times you come across situations or certain devotees or maybe new people, whatnot, that they happen to ask the same question again and again to dozens of speakers. Have you had an experience like this? Yes or no? So making an inquiry is not complete in itself. And let me give you some historical example so you understand what it means. Arjuna made an inquiry to Lord Shri Krishna, right? Shishasyam sadimam tvam prapannam. Yashreyasyan nishchitam bruhitan me shishasyam sadimam tvam prapannam. Please tell me what do you think is in my greatest interest, right? You tell me what is in my interest. And then Krishna instructed Arjuna. It's a case of inquiry. Arjuna asked. Now you take another example of person who would make similar kind of inquiries, and that is Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra would also make inquiries to Vidura. Vidura, please tell me. Vyasdevji, please tell me. Please advise me. Please guide me. What is in my good interest? But Dhritarashtra never followed. Yes and no. So please pay attention. Very important point. What is the difference between Dhritarashtra's inquiry and Arjuna's inquiry? And both of them were making that inquiry in the right spirit. They wanted to know what is in my best interest. What is the difference? Anyone like to share their thought? Wherein Dhritarashtra would always make the same inquiry to anyone who came to him. But nothing changed for Dhritarashtra. Arjuna made an inquiry to Lord Shri Krishna and everything changed for him. Okay, Jai Prabhu, your hand is up.
Prabhuji, Arjuna actually followed what was given.
So how did he follow? What was the characteristic that allowed him to follow?
He had the right intention, like
Okay.
being true to himself.
I just saw Anshul typed in and you made a right point. It was a submissive inquiry. It was you can say it was a genuine inquiry where he wanted to follow. Many times questions are made just for the sake of asking. I remember I was sitting with my spiritual master. We were traveling from one city to another city. We had just received him at the airport and we were traveling to New Vrindavan. This is back in America. And one devotee was driving. I was sitting behind and there was another devotee sitting behind. And there was a pin drop silence, particularly around my spiritual master. Generally, that's the situation. He has that mood. So suddenly, we all were feeling restless. We thought Maharaj would say something. Maharaj, let him speak, let him speak. Maharaj was not speaking. He was completely quiet. He was chanting. So this devotee, who was actually quite close to Maharaj, so he took some courage. And he said, Maharaj, can I ask you a question? And Maharaj became grave and he looked back. Is it really a very important question to be asked? And the devotee became quiet. For the rest of the journey, he did not even open his mouth. He understood that Maharaj understood what he is trying to do. He just wanted to, as I say, what do you call as icebreaker. He thought with this it would lead to some discussion and Maharaj would start narrating some Krishna Katha or something, and Maharaj shut him out on that particular point only. So that's the point here, Sadharma Pracha. Fine. And then we come to 6, principle, being prepared to give up everything material for Krishna's satisfaction. Please have a book in your hand so you continue going through with that. So being prepared to give up, in the book it is said, in the Padma Puran, it is stated, for one who has given up his material sense enjoyment and has accepted the principles of devotional service, the opulence of Vishnu Loka is awaiting. So being prepared to give up everything material for Krishna's satisfaction. So something that we do as a part of our practices, one is fasting. On the days of Ekadashi, we give up food voluntarily. Other thing that we do, let me ask you all, what all do we give up in Krishna consciousness on our day-to-day life? Giving up for the sake of Krishna, for Krishna's satisfaction. What kind of austerities that we try to perform, which is for an outsider is really a shocker, but we do so for the pleasure of Krishna. Mother Varsha, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So it's first of all waking up early in the morning.
Yes, correct. Waking up early in the morning. When we are waking up, the rest of the world is going to sleep at that point of time. There's a big shocker for them, correct? What else? I saw Mother Maidani's hand up. I don't see her where she is now. Okay, Mother Priya, go ahead.
So Prabhu also getting involved in more and more materialistic entertainment activities. Like weekends, we try to spend either in temple classes and reading rather than going out and.
Okay. So, not wasting time
Yes.
and frivolous activities. What else? I'm looking at one particular thing. And let's see who gets it. Sandeepu, what else do we give up for the pleasure of Krishna?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Accepting only Krishna Prasada.
Okay, great. Fine.
Tea and coffee.
Mother Ati Manjari.
Not giving up association of materialists.
Okay, bad association. Great. What else? Anyone else? So we wake up early, we fast, we're giving up material comforts or bodily comforts, we're giving up bad association, we are not wasting our time. Frivolous activities, Mother Harini. We have given up on useless entertainment. Yes, Mother Harini?
Giving up self-gratification and doing everything for the pleasure of Krishna.
What's the first thing giving up?
Self-gratification.
Oh, sense gratification. Okay. Santosh Prabhu. Okay, now you're getting into some deeper aspects. Let's come on to the practical actions. So fine, I've had many responses, but one thing that none of you mentioned is giving up or not giving up, doing charity, giving up one's wealth in Krishna service. Yes or no? If we accumulate wealth, then it would be utilized in the sense gratification. So doing charity, fasting, waking up early in the morning, these are some of the things. Fine. The next item, as you see on the slide, is residing in a sacred place. So there are two things, Tirtha and Dham. Does anyone know what is the difference between Tirtha and Dham? When Viduraji met Yudhishthira Maharaj, then Yudhishthira said, Tirthi kurvanti tirthani, tirtha bhuta swayam vibhuhu. Yudhishthira Maharaj told Vidurji, you are a tirtha personified. You carry tirtha in your heart wherever you go. Why? Because Krishna is captured in your heart. So wherever you travel, you bring that presence of Lord everywhere. What is Dham? Dham means a place, like we say Vrindavan Dham, right? We say Navadip Dham. We say Jagannath Puri Dham, Dwarka Dham. Dham means a place where Lord resides eternally. Okay? Dham means where Lord resides eternally. Tirtha, means to association of pure devotees. So residing in a sacred place, Prabhupada, Srila Rupa Goswami gives quotations, Skanda Purana and Brahma Purana, etc. In our case, okay, let me ask all of you, how can we practice this instruction? For all of you on the slide deck again, residing in a sacred place. How can you fulfill this instruction in the context of ISKCON? Okay, Madhu Maidani, unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Associating with the devotees.
What else? Living in a sacred place. Jai Prabhu. Yes, temple, ISKCON temple. Living next to ISKCON temple or close by to ISKCON temple is living in a sacred place. All right, deciding a sacred place. That's the point here. Okay, let's go back to the point number 8. Vahareshu sarveshu yavat arth anu vartitaha, which means accepting only what is necessary in dealing with the body. Please read out the text.
The reference from Naradiya Puran indicates that a devotee should accept only what is necessary for physical maintenance. Srila Prabhupada has expanded the meaning in terms of spiritual practices. It is better if one fixes up a regulative principle according to his own ability and then follows that vow without fail, that will make him advance in spiritual life.
Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada dedicates or makes this purport of the paragraph to this particular item in 2 points. One is in terms for bodily needs, and second in terms for spiritual practice. So accepting only what is necessary in dealing with the body. In other words, giving up atyahara, which is a principle described in Nectar of Instruction. We should accept only that much material things, facilities or items that are essential for our living, our livelihood, our well-being, as well as for our practice of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, if we accumulate more, then more time and more energy is dedicated in protection and maintenance of those material items. Yes or no? Therefore, only have necessity. Don't collect additionally like that. So therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami says only accept what is really needed for maintaining the body. Now, in terms of spiritual practice, it's a very important discussion for that. First thing is, if one makes vows, one should stick to that vow. Sankalpa, without any, before any particular vrata, we take a sankalpa. Let's say on Ekadashi, I take a sankalpa to chant 64 rounds. Or let's say Kartik month, the favorite month for taking sankalpas. I take a sankalpa to not eat any sweet in the month of Kartik. How many times devotees have made that? Or to go further more, deeper into making vows. I take a vow, I will not find any faults with devotees. So one devotee was meeting with His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, and it was the month of Kartik. So Maharaj, at the end of the meeting, he said, asked his personal assistant to bring in some sweet. And then this devotee, who is also a disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj and is a big leader, he said, Guru Maharaj, I am not taking sweet. Maharaj said, oh, why are you not taking sweet? Guru Maharaj, I have taken a sankalp in Kartik Mass not to take sweet. Then Maharaj said, all right, that is your sankalp, and now it is Guru's instruction that you take sweet. And then finally he had to accept a sweet. And then Maharaj actually wanted to give a take-home message, and Maharaj said, this is very nice, you're taking this, so you have made this sankalpa. Let me tell you what sankalpa I have taken for this Kartik Mass. So everyone was with rapt attention. Yes, Maharaj, what are your vows? Then Maharaj says, my vows are that I will try my best to chant attentively 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. My vows for this Kartik Mass is, I'll try my best to follow the 4 regulative principles seriously. Now, after a practice for a few years, we would never ever think of making a sankalpa like this. That I'll take a sankalpa to chant 16 rounds attentively, or to follow the 4 regulative principles most sincerely. But Maharaj wanted to drive home a message. We have a lot of homework to be done in the practices that we have already accepted. Before delving into a more deeper aspects of, let's say, I will not find fault for the rest of the month, do this and that, and then not able to do that. That is a point which is given in this. So when you are accepting a certain spiritual practice, we are giving a word for it, then we should stick to it. Now, what is the advantage when you stick to it? Then your determination builds. Then your faith develops that I can do it. Imagine you take a vow and you fail. It will further lower down your determination in day-to-day practice. Yes or no? Agreed upon it? So therefore, I really liked Maharaj was emphasizing onto the core principles and not get distracted with some lofty ideas. And that's the point, accepting only what is necessary in dealing with the body is. This is how Prabhupada describes in the context of body needs and spiritual needs. Then the 9th item, observing fasting on Ekadashi. Somebody would like to read from the book. They can read out from the book.
In the Brahma Vaivrata Purana, it is said that one who observes fasting on Ekadashi day is freed from all kinds of reactions to sinful activities and advances in pious life. The basic principle is not just to fast, but to increase one's faith and love for Govinda or Krishna. The real reason for observing fasting on Ekadashi is to minimize the demands of the body and to engage our time in the service of the Lord by chanting or performing similar service. The best thing to do on fasting days is to remember the pastimes of Govinda and to hear his holy name constantly.
So, very important point. Why do we fast? Either on the day of Ekadashi, Janmashtami, Ram Navami, etc., etc. We have many occasions to fast. The purpose of fasting is not to heal our body. The purpose of fasting is not to regain our health, which has become a discussion in today's time. Because a lot of scientific studies, it is proven that every 2 weeks, if you fast for a day, your body recovers. So that should not be objective of fasting. That could be a side objective. The main objective why we fast, because when we don't spend much time with our bodily needs, then the time saved is time utilized in the service of Krishna. And that time should be utilized in more chanting, reading, and hearing. That's the point here. And that's how we should utilize it. And then comes the 10th point, offering respects to Amalaki, Ashwatha, and other items. Dhatri, Ashwathadi, Gauravam. Somebody can read out from the book what Prabhupada writes on it. Anyone else who would like to read? Jai Prabhu, go ahead.
In the Skand Puran, it is directed that the devotee should offer water to the Tulsi plant and Amalka tree. Should offer respect to the cows and to the Brahmanas, and should serve the Vaishnavas by offering them respectful obeisances and meditating upon them. All of these processes will help the devotee to diminish the reactions to his past sinful activities.
Hare Krishna. So with this, we complete our 10 items, what we should be doing. And now, 11th item will begin with giving up the association or the company of non-devotees. And in this remaining 7th chapter, we have almost 11 to 18 items covered of what not to do. That we shall discuss after a 10-minute break. So far, we are discussing on the 64 items of devotional life described by Srila Rupa Goswami from the 7th chapter onwards. And we have so far seen the 10 items of practice that we should be doing. And in that, initial items were of accepting Guru, taking initiation, then taking Shiksha from him, and then rendering service unto him, then Sadharma Pracha, inquiring, making right inquiries, then following sadhus, etc., etc., like this. And there were 10 items of practice that we should do in our life were described. Now we're going to talk about what we should not be doing, as Srila Rupa Goswami talks about, from 11th item onward. So let's go back to presentation. And the 11th item, you can see in your book also is, oh, wait a second. Pages got a little messed up. 11th item is, giving up the company of non-devotees. Sangatyago vidurena bhagavad vimukher janaha. Giving up the association of non-devotees. So Prabhupada, in his explanation, he talks about there are 2 types of non-devotees. If you look in the first paragraph, in the 4th line, and he says the two kinds of non-devotees. One, who is against the supremacy of Lord Shri Krishna, and another class is 2, materialistic. Now, the one who is against the supremacy of Krishna means one who consider all devatas on the same level, or consider Lord Shiva, Brahma, Ganesh, Indra, Vayu, Varuna, etc., etc., and Lord Shri Krishna, Rama, Narasimha, everyone on the same level. So, in other words, demigod worshippers. All right. And second, those who are too much absorbed in Bhoga, Aishwarya, Prasaktanam, like that. In the next paragraph, Prabhupada, from the 4th line, you will see, similarly in the Vishnu Rahasya, there is a statement to the effect that one should prefer to embrace a snake, a tiger, or an alligator, rather than associate with person who are worshippers of various demigods and who are impelled by material desires. All of you saw that in your book? Okay, that's Vishnu Rahasya says, huh? Please somebody read out the next two paragraphs, which is the third paragraph and the fourth one. Naveen Prabhu, please go ahead.
In the scriptures, it is instructed that one may worship a certain demigod if he is desirous of achieving some material gain. For example, one is advised to worship the sun god if he is desirous of getting rid of disease condition. For a beautiful wife, one may worship Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva, and for advanced education, one may worship Saraswati. Similarly, there is a list in the Srimad Bhagavatam for worshippers of all demigods, according to different material desires. But all of these worshippers, although they appear to be very good devotees of the demigods, are still considered to be non-devotees. They cannot be accepted as devotees. The Mayavadis, impersonalists, say that one may worship any form of the Lord and that it doesn't matter because one reaches the same destination anyway. But it is clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita that those who are worshippers of the demigods will ultimately reach only the planets of those demigods, while those who are devotees of the Lord himself will be promoted to the Lord's abode, the kingdom of God. So actually, these persons who are worshippers of demigods have been condemned in the Gita. It is described that due to their lusty desires, they have lost their intelligence and have therefore taken to worshipping the different demigods. So in Vishnu Rahasya, these demigod worshippers are forcefully condemned by the statement that it is better to live with the most dangerous animals than to associate with these persons.
Hare Krishna. So two kinds of non-devotees are described, giving up the association. One is those who are demigod worshippers. Second, those who are too attached to sense gratification. Bhoga Aishwarya Prasaktanam. Now, coming to the next items that should be given up. Item number 12 to item number 14. Shishya Adi Ananu Bandhitvam. Not being attached to making disciples. If you take a look in the book, it is said, not accept unfit disciples, constructing many temples, or reading many books. This is all clubbed together in Prabhupada's writing, 12th, 13, 14. Unfit disciples, 12, 13, constructing many temples, and 14, reading many books. So let's take a look at the verse on the screen. Na shishyan anubadhnita grantha naiva bhayasat bahun na vyakhya upayunjita narambhanarabhet kavachit. A sannyasi must not present allurements of material benefits to gather many disciples, nor should he unnecessarily read many books or give discourses as a means of livelihood. He must never attempt to increase material opulences unnecessarily. Hare Krishna. Let's have a little discussion, because in this chapter and the next chapter, there are some controversial things which I mentioned. We'll try to understand that. So do not accept too many disciples. Do not construct too many temples or read many books. How many of you would agree, or maybe thinking right now, hey, wait a second, Srila Prabhupada accepted so many disciples. At certain places, Srila Prabhupada gave initiation to people who were hardly 1 week in a movement. 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, like that. And second, Prabhupada also constructed many temples. He sent out devotees, go here, go there, open center, open temples. Yes or no? All agree with this? This is what had happened. And here in Nectar Devotion it is said, should not accept unfit disciples and should not construct many temples. So it looks like a dichotomy, opposite views. Because Prabhupada did accept disciples. Prabhupada did construct many temples. And ISKCON is known for constructing temples. And if you happen to ever go to Delhi, every nook and corner, there is some ISKCON temple coming up. His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj is just like, what do you say, is just want to make temples all over. So are they not following this point? How do we reconcile? This needs to be reconciled. This needs to be understood. So we'll focus on Prabhupada. If you understand that, we definitely would understand for anyone else who are there, followers of Srila Prabhupada. So first thing first, when we talk about Srila Prabhupada, and then we'll come back to the purport of what is mentioned here. Prabhupada had both disciples as well as many temples. But Prabhupada never compromised on any principles. That's very important aspect. The details could vary, but principles should never be compromised. For example, all of you might have heard of this particular incident where some of Prabhupada's disciples were recommending to Prabhupada, if you could just, relax the fourth principle in the regular principles, Srila Prabhupada would have hundreds and thousands and millions of people following our movement, and it will very easily spread all over the world. But Prabhupada never compromised. Yes, Prabhupada went to the West, but Prabhupada never compromised on his attire of a sannyasi. Even in the chilly winters of New York, Prabhupada will still continue to wear his dhoti kurta. Prabhupada always shaved his head, followed the Vaishnava attire and the lifestyle and whatnot. Never ever Prabhupada compromised on the principles, but details could vary. How do we understand that? All right. Somebody please read out. This is a conversation of Srila Prabhupada with Shruti Kirti Prabhu. Mother Manju, please go ahead.
My God brothers criticize me that I have allowed women to live in our temples. This is not in India. Only brahmacharis can live. But I have become successful because I have made this adjustment. Although they criticize me, their Gaudiya
Mutt.
mutts are come for Parikama, widows, women in white, because I have the screen.
Because I have made this adjustment, I was successful.
I was successful.
So Prabhupada never compromised on the principles, but details he did vary. And why he varied the details, that's a question for all of you. We'll take a look at it. Let's read the next part of the conversation. Okay, Nitai Pran Prabhu and Mother Taruni Gopika, you can take the role of Shruti Kirti Prabhu and Prabhupada. Please go ahead and read out.
Shruti Kirti Prabhu, Prabhupada, how can we tell the difference between making an adjustment and changing a principle?
That's take a little intelligence.
So yes, that takes a little intelligence, which means we cannot just do it by ourselves. It should be under the guidance. So when you talk about unfit disciples of the costly temples, Prabhupada made some changes in the details. And what was the objective of it? Is to spread Krishna consciousness. Let's read this conversation where Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is speaking about Agun Jwalabe. There will be fire. This is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur talking to Abhay Charan Dev when he was in Grihastha Ashram during one of the Vrindavan Parikramas. Nitai Pran Prabhu, continue reading.
Arjun Javalape, there will be a fire. One day, there would be a fire in the Kolkata Gaudiya Mutt, and that fire of party interest would spread and destroy. When we were living in a rented house, if we could collect 200 or 300 rupees, we were living very nicely at Ulta Danga. We were happier then. But since we have been given this marble palace in Bagh Bazaar, there is a friction between our man. Who will occupy this room? Who will occupy that room? Who will be the proprietor of this room? Everyone is planning in different ways.
Continue.
It would be better to take the marble from the walls and secure money. If I could do this and print books, that would be better. Abhay felt his spiritual master speaking to him in urgency, as if asking him for help or warning him to avoid disaster. Shri Bhakti Siddhant then said directly to Abhay, Amara Ichha Shila Kichube Karana. I had a desire to print some books. If you ever get money, print books. Standing by Radha Kund and beholding his spiritual master, Abhay felt the words deeply enter his own life. If you ever get money, friends book. Shri Prabhupada Leela.
So this is a discussion which is about a temple, a very beautiful temple which is still there, which was built by one of the Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Grahastha, who had actually sold off his property and built this fantastic marble temple. Even if you go to Ultadanga today, where you have the altar, right at the opposite end, there is a small room where this Grihastha, after selling off his property and building this whole temple, he moved into that small room. So this is a discussion going on here, where when this temple was built, his disciples began to fight over which room they would like to choose. So on this discussion, the principle is that one should decide according to his adhikar, how much to involve or deal with the material energy. I believe that was in Calcutta when Prabhupada was back in India, spending a lot of time in India after 70, 71. The Vrindavan, then around 73 Mayapur project, we get the Mayapur land. Of course, the effort started in 71 for that. And then Mayapur project also, the discussion was going on. So Prabhupada really wanted to build these projects back in India and to bring some stability to the movement. But to build all these big temples, and Prabhupada had an incredible vision, incredible plan for all these temples. All of you, in case you have been to ISKCON Juhu temple, or if you know the story of it, for Juhu temple, Prabhupada, I believe, hired L&T, Larsen and Turbo, or maybe some other big builder to build that twin towers that we have in Juhu temple. The guest house. If you work with a local contractor, the cost is something. But when you work with a builder, and that to a professional, known person, their rates are pretty high. Prabhupada was willing to do that. And to do all that, of course, a lot of money was needed. So there's one famous photo which was clicked in Calcutta temple where Prabhupada, some time ago, there was this Pandal program in Calcutta that happened. And somebody was saying that, how so-and-so sannyasi here, he said, I got nothing to do with money. You should never bring money to me or something like that. So Prabhupada sarcastically commenting to that person was saying, you bring all the money to me, keep in front of me and take a photo and send it everywhere. Swamiji needs a lot of money to build temples. So the point here is, according to one's adhikar, one can mingle with the material energy of the Lord for the purpose of serving the Lord. And of course, money and manpower is needed to build temples and run the temples. And that is for the purpose of preaching Krishna consciousness, not for the purpose of self-aggrandizement. Bhaktivedanta Manor, which was already ready, Prabhupada's quarters were made ready by 1973, 72-73. And 73, Prabhupada got Mayapur land. And Prabhupada, before coming back to India, going to Mayapur, he was living in Bhaktivedanta Manor in his fabulous room, a fantastic place which Prabhupada liked it a lot. And then he came to Mayapur, and there, I believe all of you would have gone to Mayapur. As you enter the main gate, when you enter the main gate, on the left-hand side, there is Gaur Nitai temple. And right next to Gaur Nitai temple is a kutir, where there's a 24-hour kirtan goes on. How many have seen this, right? So that's a place where Prabhupada came and stayed, because there was nothing in that farmland. So the disciples had built up a kutir for Srila Prabhupada, which was infested with mosquitoes and whatnot in the night. Prabhupada went through all the difficulties. For what? Now, if Prabhupada was after the name, fame, and comfort, then he would have continued staying in Bhaktivedanta Manor and could have continued with his writing service. But Prabhupada gave up everything, came to Mayapur, was living in such a humble situation. He took all the pain for Bombay project, and then took all the trouble for Vrindavan project. And again, yet he traveled all over the world again and again, despite his poor health, with only one objective: to fulfill the instruction of his Guru Maharaj, to preach the mission of Krishna consciousness. And to facilitate that, money and manpower both are needed. And therefore, at times, Prabhupada would get initiation also with the best hope the person would take it seriously. Why did he build all these costly temples? Very simple thing. Anytime you go around let's say in any city, if you have an ISKCON temple, in general, you will see the footfall in ISKCON temple is far greater than any other temple. Why? Because the amenities that ISKCON temple provides, hardly any other temples have. Just like in Vrindavan temple, and traditionally in temples, there is no rest area or restroom. But in Vrindavan, the first temple to have toilet and bathrooms was Vrindavan Krishna Balaram temple. Now, if you want guests to stay there for several hours, if you just want people to come and put some 1 or 2 rupee coin in hundi and walk away immediately, then it's a different thing. But if you want people to stay there, take part in the program, then basic facilities have to be provided. It was Srila Prabhupada who actually ordered, no, we have to have this at least minimal facility so that people can come and spend time here. And because of this clear vision, and to spread the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada took all these steps. That's the point of the discussion all here. All right. So unfit disciples, costly temples. I'll give you some quotations also in a short while from Prabhupada purports. Let's take a look on the third point, which is about reading too many books. So we need to be very careful of this particular aspect. If it is for service, then under the guidance of our authorities, we can take up books, even spiritual books for that reason, and then can read it. Otherwise, ideally, we should only stick our nose to Srila Prabhupada books and nothing else. We should first of all read and understand Srila Prabhupada books. Then as the time permits, then we can look into Acharya's commentaries. Nothing wrong, it's fantastic, Prabhupada encouraged it. However, we prematurely do so, then we'll end up in fault finding. 91-92, there was a big controversy that erupted in ISKCON. 2 devotees, highly scholarly devotees, published a book. And the name of the book was, Even a Leaf Does Not Fall from Vaikuntha. What to speak of a jiva falling from Vaikuntha? And it led to a lot of rupture in the society because Prabhupada many times said jiva falls from Vaikuntha. Too much conflict happened, and then finally GPC had to publish the book, Our Original Position, on the topic of, even a leaf doesn't fall from Vaikuntha. And finally, these devotees did not agree to that, and they left ISKCON. And they have their own institute which they're doing and running and all that. And many, many examples are there. I'm just giving one example. So our responsibility, as somebody, we discussed that in the beginning, first thing is we need to become loyal to our Guru Parampara. We can become loyal to Guru Parampara when we become loyal to Guru, and which means becoming loyal to Srila Prabhupada's instruction. As we discussed, following the sadhus is a very important point. We can understand scriptures only when we hear from sadhus, right? So somebody trying to use his intellectual power and say, no, this is not what Prabhupada meant, or Prabhupada is not correct. Jiva does not fall from Vaikuntha, for an example. What does it indicate? I know better, isn't it? And the principle is we can only understand scriptures from sadhus. And if that's what Prabhupada's version and indication is, that's what we take to. We don't change. Is that making sense? That is a point of discussion which is happening here. So we can read few things from the purport or from the explanation here. In the first paragraph of this discussion, Prabhupada mentions one should carefully read Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and this Nectar of Devotion, and that will give him sufficient knowledge to understand the science of Krishna consciousness. The first paragraph of this discussion, the last 3-4 lines. And Prabhupada concludes with, one need not take the trouble of reading other books. Then Prabhupada writes about the rules for sannyasis from the 4th line. The rules for the sannyasis, anyone would like to read if they are found it in the book. Those persons who have renounced this material world, one who has accepted the sannyas out of life, is forbidden to accept as a disciple anyone who is not fit. If you have found it, anyone wants to read further? Please go ahead, raise your hand, and then Mother Manisha, go ahead.
One who has accepted sannyas order of life is forbidden to accept as a disciple anyone who is not fit. A sannyasi should first of all examine whether a prospective student is sincerely seeking Krishna consciousness. If he is not, he should not be accepted. However, Lord Chaitanya's causeless mercy is such that he advised all bona fide spiritual masters to speak about Krishna consciousness every day. Therefore, in the line of Lord Chaitanya, even the sannyasis can speak about Krishna consciousness every day. And if someone is seriously inclined to become a disciple, the sannyasi always accepts him. The one point is that
Correct.
without
I'll just make a point and then Mother, you can read further. So now a point comes, but why should we still accept more disciples? And Prabhupada mentions that. Please read now.
the one point is that without increasing the number of disciples, there is no propagation of the cult of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, sometimes even at risk, a sannyasi in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may accept even a person who is not thoroughly fit to become a disciple. Later on, by the mercy of such a bona fide spiritual master, the disciple is gradually elevated. However, if one increases the number of disciples simply for some prestige or false honor, he will surely fall down in the matter of executing Krishna consciousness.
So if it is not for propagation of Krishna consciousness, but it is for one's own puja la pratishtha, which is a subtle sex desire, then certainly that person will fall down. Now about constructing temple. In the next paragraph, Prabhupada mentions, just like Rupa Goswami, he was offered a favor by Maharaj Man Singh to build a temple, and Rupa Goswami gave him permission and he built a costly and expensive temple, Radha Govindan temple and Radha Madan Mohan temple for Srila Sanatana Goswami, etc., etc. Then in the following paragraph comes about constructing temple. So should a bona fide spiritual master get involved or entangled in building a costly temple? Yes or no? That is a discussion. Mother Sneha, go ahead, read the next paragraph. So a bona fide spiritual master. That's a paragraph you need to read.
Yes, Prabhuji. So a bona fide spiritual master should not personally take any responsibility for constructing temples. But if someone has money and wants to spend it in the service of Krishna, an acharya like Rupa Goswami may utilize the devotee's money to construct a nice costly temple for the service of the Lord. Unfortunately, it happens that someone who is not fit to become a spiritual master may approach wealthy persons to contribute for temple constructions. If such money is utilized by unqualified spiritual masters for living comfortably in costly temples without actually doing any preaching work, this is not acceptable. In other words, a spiritual master needn't be very enthusiastic for constructing temple buildings simply in the name of so-called spiritual advancement. Rather, his first and foremost activity should be to preach. In this connection, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj recommended that a spiritual master print books. If one has money, instead of constructing costly temples, one should spend his money for the publication of authorized books in different languages for propagating the Krishna consciousness movement.
Hare Krishna. So why ISKCON constructs costly temples? Who would like to give an answer? Is it for the comfortable living of the monks, the sannyasis? Why spend tens and hundreds of crores to build the expensive temples? Mother Manisha, go ahead.
Prabhuji, in today's world, see that the advancement of technology, people, if we not construct such beautiful and large temples, the people will go to the mall, the cinemas, and all these things. There they will find more attraction than in the temple. So we have to build these temples. And plus, these temples have to be very active also in providing the spiritual needs of the visitors who are coming to the temple. So it is the need, because we have to build like this when the people get more attracted towards its beauty and the culture and the people also.
Perfect. Thank you. One reporter asked Srila Prabhupada, I believe that was in Pune itself, during Prabhupada's visit, Swamiji, in India we have so many temples. Why do we want to build more temples? Does anyone know what Prabhupada replied? Prabhupada said, in India, we already have so many kids, so many population. Why do you want to have your own kid? And the reporter got the answer. He understood. Prabhupada said, we want to build temples so we can serve the Lord in a certain way, which is otherwise not possible. So that's the purpose, and why accepting disciples etc. That's the whole objective order. Okay, let's move forward now to our discussion. Coming to the 15th point, Vyavahare api akar parniyam. Straightforward in ordinary dealings. Okay, looks like I have repeated the shloka here by mistake. Anyways, no problem. Let's continue. Let's read out from the book what Prabhupada explains. So, straightforwardness in ordinary dealings and equilibrium and loss and gain. These are the 2 points. First thing is straightforwardness in ordinary dealings. In what situation can you have straightforwardness in dealings? Only when you are not dependent on other person. Only when we are not dependent on your livelihood on another person. Therefore, Brahmana is supposed to speak the truth. Why? Because he lives on charity. He is not a paid person. If Brahmana gets a salary and if he gets an employer, then it's not a Brahmana. He becomes a Shudra. Because now he cannot speak the truth. So please read out. Who would like to read this paragraph?
There is a statement in Padma Purana. Person who are engaged in Krishna consciousness should never be disturbed by some material gain or loss. Even if there is some material loss, one should not be perturbed, but should always think of Krishna within himself. The purport is that every conditioned soul is always absorbed in thinking of materialistic activities. He has to free himself from such thoughts and transfer himself completely to Krishna consciousness. As we have already explained, the basic principle of Krishna consciousness is to always think of Krishna. One should not be disturbed in material loss, but rather should concentrate his mind upon the lotus feet of the Lord. The devotee should not be subjected
This is
to
the 16th. This is the 16th principle, equilibrium, loss and gain. Continue reading.
Which one?
A devotee should not be.
A devotee should not be subjected to lamentation or illusion. There is the following statement in the Padma Purana. Within the heart of a person who is overpowered by lamentation or anger, there is no possibility of Krishna's being manifested.
Hare Krishna. This was the 16th point. And coming to the conclusion of this chapter, the 17th and 18th point which I mentioned is 17th is not disrespecting devatas. Prabhupada mentions in his description, Vaishnava knows Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he does not consider other personalities to be on the same level. However, Prabhupada writes, but he is duty bound to offer respects to all the devatas. According to Vaishnava philosophy, one should offer respect even to an ant. So then what is there to speak of such exalted persons as Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma? And then the 18th, not giving pain to any living entity. I'll just make one statement about it and you can read the paragraph. How not to give pain to any living entity means stop criticizing. That's the only thing. How many of you agree somebody gives you physical pain that can heal, but if somebody criticizes you, speaks harshly, that is very difficult to forget. Yes or no? That's the meaning of this point. So with this, we conclude the 7th chapter. Let's move forward. So now we come to the chapter 8. Offenses to be avoided. The essence of sadhana is to fix the mind on Krishna. But an offense is something that takes the mind away from Krishna by minimizing its aparadh. So in 8th chapter, where only the 19th item, aparadh, is being discussed, describes aparadh in 2 categories, seva aparadh and nama aparadh. For the time that is given to us remaining right now, we'll only discuss briefly on the seva aparadh. Nama aparadh will elaborate in the next session. So what is the relative importance of each? Which is more serious? Seva aparadh is less serious than nama aparadh because you can rectify your seva aparadh by the power of holy name. But how do you rectify your nama aparadh? So by chanting properly, we can, remove the reaction or overcome the reaction generated because of seva prad. So this does not mean one may be neglectful in deity worship, knowing that the holy name will save him, but employing the holy name like a rag to mop up the filth of one's sin is in itself an offense. I believe this is the seventh offense, to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy names. Chanting will eradicate sins, but if one offends the holy name, there is no chance of being delivered. So, seva prad and nama prad, these are the two aprad which are discussed in the 8th chapter. There are different categories of seva prad which are mentioned. There are almost 32 items, the way seva prad can happen, which are quoted by Srila Rupa Goswami from various commentaries and writings. If those aprad happens, we can take care of the reaction of it by taking shelter of Nama Prabhu. But if Nama aprad happens, then nobody is there to give us shelter. That's the point. Coming to chapter 8, offenses to be avoided. This is the verse which Srila Rupa Goswami writes, describing this, aprad, about which Srila Prabhupada have described in detail. Sevanam aparadhanam varjanam yatha varahe. And what is described here? Mamarchana aparadhaye kirtiyante vasudhe maya Vaishnavena sadate tu varjanya pariyatnataha. Avoiding seva and nam aprad, verse number 81, illustrated in the Varha Puran. The devotee should avoid the offenses in the deity worship described by me, O earth, at all times with great care. So if you look at the chapter briefly, Srila Rupa Goswami describes 32 offenses in the matter of serving the Lord, and the whole list is given. And after that, he quotes Varha Puran, and from there is another list of 32 offenses which are described. And then finally, there is a discussion on the worship of Lord Ganesh. We'll try to discuss up to this much in the time frame that we have. I'll give you the summary of it, and you can read it out. So before we get into the seva prad, I guess it's worthy to discuss about the importance of deity worship. Somebody may think, if there are going to be seva prad, then why should I unnecessarily take to deity worship? Better I don't take to deity worship. But if you read the 7th canto, where Prahlad Maharaj quotes Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam. Prabhupada have given almost close to 2 to 3 pages long purport to this word Archanam. And there Prabhupada again and again emphasizes how important it is for Grahasthas to do deity worship. It is very important. So what is the importance of deity worship is what we'll briefly discuss now. And then we'll read out all these offenses. First, significance of the Lord descending in deity form. Somebody please would like to read out. Let's find a reading partner for this. Be easy. Okay, Mother Priya, if you want to read, you can be unmuted and join in this. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Significance of the Lord descending in deity form. The form of the Lord as worshipped in the temples is called Archa Vigraha or Archa Avatara, the worshipable form, the deity incarnation. The deity form is the spiritual form of the Lord visible to our material eyes so that we can serve Him and awaken love for Him. All neophytes must therefore engage in the worship of the Lord by keeping the Archa Vigraha, Archa Avatara at home or in the temple, from Srimad Bhagavatam 433.
So it is considered very important for neophytes. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also talks about it because it helps the neophytes to become more steady in their practice of devotional life through the means of deity worship. And not only this, it doesn't mean that only the neophyte worship, that's not the point, but it is considered something very important for neophyte or Kanishthadikaris. But if you take a look, Madhavacharya, he personally worshipped Udupi Krishna. We have Ramanujacharya who personally worshipped Ranganathji. And Shankaracharya, he worshipped Badri Vishal. and he traveled all over the India and rediscovered the lost deities. Before you go to Badrinath, there is a place comes Joshimath, where is a very famous temple, very famous temple of Lord Narasimhadev, and that deity were also rediscovered by Shankaracharya. Not only that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself worshipped Lord Jagannath. So we're just quoting some famous acharyas, and now here the Supreme Personality Godhead himself, who worshipped the deity, worshipped Lord Jagannath. So let's take a look at benefits of deity worship. Second point, what is deity worship? Please read out.
What is deity worship? God is spirit, but as Krishna reveals in the Bhagavad Gita, matter is his energy. Because we cannot perceive spirit in our present condition, Krishna allows us to see him in his deity form made of material elements, which is identical to him.
So that's the purpose. That's the whole thing. Our senses, we have discussed this elaborately in Ishopanishad, so I'm not going to go in explanation. We cannot access the transcendence. So the transcendence appears in the form that we can perceive. And that is a deity form made up of the elements of this creation. Third, deity worship is an important process. Why? Please read out.
Deity worship is an important process. One, to purify our vision to see Krishna's spiritual form. Second, tangible way to serve God directly in our present state. Third, to gain attention and devotion in our devotional service. Deity worship is not idol worship, but is worship of the Lord according to his instruction.
The photo that you see here is of Srimati Radharani. I didn't have the opportunity to put more photos. This is a very famous deity of Shri Radha Krishna from Pakistan, where this deity is being served by one congregation, and it's truly remarkable how they worship the deities. They follow more stringent regulations than the temple, and their deity decoration is fabulous. If any one of you are interested, you can just ping me or post a message in the group. I'll find out more photos. I have it in my system. I'll share to you. Incredible decoration of the deities every day or dressing. Okay, let's continue with the discussion further. What are the benefits of deity worship? There are several other benefits I mentioned. Please read out.
Fourth, it saves us from the hellish attraction. Fifth, infuses mundane mind with spiritual inspiration.
Now, let me just make a one point for it. Saves from hellish attraction. Now, when you start serving, for example, now your, let's say, drawing room or the living room has been replaced by the deities or the altar. So, which means your TV has moved somewhere else, or else TV has gone out of the house. So, it saves you from hellish attraction. Now you come inside the house and you look at the deities, so you get, that draws your attention, attraction. That's the point. Fifth point, infuses mundane mind with spiritual inspiration. Now, I'll give my one example just to help you understand this. This is back in America where I got connected to Krishna consciousness. So there I remember at one point of time, the congregation who used to bring flowers for the deities, because of some health reasons, could not go, and they could not travel for a few months because of health reasons. So they asked me, or some other service came to me, and now I started going on every Sunday to get flowers for the deities, which was almost for a couple of hours. It used to take 4 or 5 hours. It was at a distance, come, travel, bring the flowers, select the flowers, and come back. So I just did it out of gratitude. I thought they have asked me, let me do it. That was the only intention. But I'll tell you what a profound impact the service had on my consciousness. When I did it for 1 week and second week, and from third week onward, wherever I saw a flower, immediately the first thing that will come to my mind is, oh, how beautiful it would look on Shri Radha Natwar. Columbus, Ohio, Radha Natwar, the deity is there. It changed my perspective. It was not for my purpose, or rather, I would have never looked at the flower with any intention as such. But now when I looked at the flower, in fact, I began searching whenever I would go out. There are a lot of gardens and things like that. So I would look at it and I would wonder, wow, if this flower goes into the garland, how beautiful it look like. How many of you here dress deities? You'll understand what I mean by. If you're dressing deities, you are the one who most carefully, attentively takes darshan, isn't it? You're looking at every nook and corner. How does the deity look like? Is everything good or not? And ask the person who does not do deity dressing. When he goes out of the altar, when he goes out of the temple, ask him what is the color of the dress of deity. He would not be able to remember. Forget about the finer nuances. So that's the point here in brief. What we're discussing infuses mundane mind with spiritual inspiration. 6 point, good engagement for gross body. You get a chance to personally serve the deities. What else can you ask for? Then it purifies our existence, which means heart. Our heart gets purified because now our mind is getting absorbed in spiritual vibrations. And release from sense agitation, which primarily comes from anxiety for one's fulfillment of sensual desires, etc., etc. So these are the benefits of deity worship. Some of the things more can be added, but this is for all of your perusal. So now let's take a look at seva aparadhs. What are these seva aparadh which are mentioned? Mother, please continue reading now.
Jiva Goswami's commentary. First, avoidance of seva aparadh, offenses in deity service is discussed. The following list is found in the
Agamas.
Entering the Lord's temple in a palanquin or with shoes.
Which means we should not do it, huh? We should not enter the temple in a palanquin or with shoes. Next.
Not observing the festivals of the deity.
So if you have the deities and you're worshipping the deities, maybe let's say at home, and if you don't observe the festivals, that's considered seva aparadh. Next.
Not offering obeisance in front of the Lord.
So when you enter the temple, not offering respects and obeisances, sign of arrogance, seva aparadh. Next.
Offering prayers to the Lord in an unclean state or after having eaten without washing properly.
Okay, washing hands, and also we wash our feet after we eat. That's the point. Okay, go ahead.
Offering respects with one.
So let me just give a quick disclaimer. Time, place, circumstances, and details vary. So not everything may be applicable today, and I'll give you some examples, but let's continue reading. Let's go ahead next.
Circumambulating in front of the Lord.
Do we circumambulate anything in front of the Lord? Yes, every morning. Not every morning actually. In the evening, in the temples where you have Tulsi worship, isn't it? When you have Tulsi worship, let's say Mayapur temple, they have Tulsi worship. Radha Madhav altar is open, yes or no? So time, place, circumstances. Please read it out because if in case we don't have a time, I'll have a proper question answer on these next time. What we can follow, what we cannot. Okay. Okay, Mother, go ahead.
Spreading the legs in front of the deity.
Yeah.
Clasping the hands on the knees in front of the deity.
Yeah, spreading the legs in front of the deity, which means spreading your feet, showing your feet to the Lord. That should never be done. Clasping the hands on the knees in front of the deity, crouching. When you're sitting on the ground, raising your feet and crouching like this, that also considered very inappropriate. All right, we should not do that. Let's go with next. Go ahead.
Lying down in front of the deity.
Lying down in front of the deity, which means, of course, a Rasika Bhakt, an advanced devotee taking a darshan of the Lord, may faint in ecstasy. Lying down in front of the deity, which means we should not sleep in front of the deity otherwise. Okay. Go ahead.
Eating in front of the deity.
So if you have, you would have an experience, or if not, in case if you're hosting a program and you have an altar at your home, or let's say even at the temple, and if you have to serve prasadam in the temple hall, we generally close the altar. Go ahead.
Telling lies in front of the deity.
So imagine how important it is for grahasthas to have deities at home, right? Now you cannot speak a lie. So nobody is going to speak a lie to each other. You have deities in the house. Okay, go ahead.
Speaking loudly in front of the deity.
So we don't scream. So there would be no Mahabharata in the homes anymore. Go ahead.
Gossiping in front of the deity.
Gossiping means prajalpa. A nonsensical talk that should not be done. Then?
Crying in front of the deity.
I'll explain this. Go ahead next.
Calling quarreling in front of the deity.
which means fighting, haggling, wrangling, or fighting in front of the deity. So, what does this, all these points which I mentioned means here? Deity worship that we do it in the mood of dasya bhav, where the deities are considered in an Aishwarya mood, and Dwarka mood, opulence, Vaikuntha mood. They are the king, we are the servants. So when we do any of these things, actually it causes distraction to them. Yes or no? Speaking loudly, fighting over, quarreling, crying in front of the deity, etc., that is considered inauspicious, inappropriate. Now, crying in front of the deity in itself is not wrong. Sometimes all of us would have had shed tears. That is totally acceptable out of the genuine need which is coming out. What is the point crying in front of the deity? Just like all of you would have heard of this point, if in someone's house any family member dies, then he should not go to temple. You have heard this? You know the point? Does anyone know what's the logic behind it? The logic is, this is the point. Because if someone has died in one's family, then his mind gets really perturbed and is always absorbed in the thoughts of that person. So if imagine that person goes in front of the deities and is, let's say, even is doing deity worship, his mind will not be in deity worship, but his mind would be grieving and thinking about his or her relative. So therefore, this 15 days, depending on different cultures, a time frame is given, which means after that much time, the person becomes sober and he accepts the reality that the person has departed away. So when you go in front of the king, the culture is you should be happy. Not in a morose and a sad state, you go in front of a senior. That's the principle behind which is being discussed here, okay? Let's move ahead with other items. Go ahead.
17. Thanking others in front of the deity.
Continue.
18. Saying cruel words in front of the deity. 19. Covering oneself with a blanket in front of the deity. 20th. Criticizing others in front of the deity. 21. Praising others in front of the deities. 22. Using vulgar language in front of the deity. 23. Passing air in front of the deity. 24. Offering less items when capable of offering more food.
So the first, the 17 to 23 items, if you see, 24 items is a little different. 17 to 23 item indicates when you're in front of the altar, when you're in front of the deities, your exclusive attention should be on the deities. Because they are the Supreme Lord. We should not, in front of the Supreme Lord, glorify or praise or thank anyone else. Simultaneously, we should not criticize, which is a negative connotation here, or use vulgar language, or 23, in an unclean state, like that. That is being described here. So let me ask this question to all of you. If your spiritual master, imagine you enter a temple hall and you happen to see your spiritual master and the altar is open. What are you supposed to do? Oh, we just read Nectar Devotion. Srila Rupa Goswami said, do not offer respect to anyone except to the Lord. So, hello, Gurudev. Nice to see you after a long time. Happy to meet you. Or are you going to offer your respects? We're going to offer our respects. So, when it comes to Guru, Diksha Guru and Shiksha Guru, we offer respect. So, you would say, hey, this is violation of the principle. So, this question was asked to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, you have written an act of devotion in front of the Lord. Nobody should be offered respect. So should we offer respects to devotees or not? Prabhupada said, Lord is not an autocrat. He is not a selfish person who would become insecure if we offer respects to anyone else. In fact, Lord becomes very pleased when he sees how devotees, lovingly relate with each other, when they have a wonderful relationship. Got the point? So we are reading it now. Next time on, we'll give you more details, but that's the aspect of it. Time, place, circumstances. Okay, let's continue reading the concluding items.
25th, eating foods without offering it. 26th, not offering seasonal fruits to the deity. 27th, offering the deity what is offered already to someone else. 28th, sitting with one's back to the deity.
So,
When in
okay, I'll just add some of these points. In the 24th point, it was mentioned not serving the deity according to one capacity. If somebody is well-to-do person, and yet he says, Lord Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhakta Prachati. So let me just offer a leaf and flower and Lord will be pleased. No, Prabhupada makes it very clearly. Of course, Lord is fine, but Lord is also the most clever person. He sees not what you offer, he sees what you keep back to yourself. So if you have a capacity, then we should serve the Lord with full heart and full intent. Okay, the other points which I mentioned here, eating food without offering it, that you all know of it. 28 point, sitting with one's back to the deity, this is a sign of disrespect, to show one's back to a senior. And then 29, addressing others in front of the deity. Again, 29, 30, the kind of repeated, praising oneself in front of the deity or praising others. We should not do that. 31 and 32, criticizing the deity or being silent in front of gurus. So these are considered the 32 offenses against Lord Vishnu, which are described here. And there is another 32 offenses from Vara Purana, which you can read out for yourself. So this is something, in the another 32 list, quoted from Vara Purana, you will find what kind of clothes you cannot wear. There's in fact particular kind of a color which is mentioned. You should not wear a purple color dress, etc., etc. So this has to be understood in time, place, and circumstances. For example, in earlier days, there was no culture of clicking photos of the Lord. In fact, even if you go in today's time to any traditional temple, they do not put any electricity there. Have you seen that? Even you go to Tirupati Balaji, that's one of the famous temples you might have visited. They only light lamp, ghee lamps or the oil lamps. No electricity. Forget about clicking pictures. But in ISKCON, we allow that. Sometimes, for example, sometimes we record lectures and we have to sit in front of a camera for, sometimes for half an hour, 1 or 2 hours, and there are lights focusing on you. It is very, very troublesome to the health and to the eyes when the lights are flashing onto you. So imagine you are there sitting at one place and lights are flashing onto you for several hours. It would be greatly inconvenient. And then on top of it, people are coming, clicking, relentlessly, they're clicking photos. Again, it will be a little troublesome, isn't it? So, but Srila Prabhupada allowed that. See, from one perspective, what can trouble Krishna? Can anything trouble Krishna? Not at all. So why ISKCON allows us, why we have, flashy lights, focus lights on the deities, except for Kartik, I have never seen ghee lamp or the oil lamps on the altar, isn't it? Except for the Kartik month, and that too also only for a certain time. And then we have, people want, they can take the photos of the deities, even our own devotees go and take the photos of the deities and we publish on the net all over the place. The only reason is to facilitate preaching. Only an acharya can make little changes in the details. So when it comes to us, we should always consult what is the right behavior and what is the wrong behavior. An acharya withholding Krishna in his heart, understanding the mood of Krishna and understanding the purpose of Krishna and the need of the hour can bring about the changes. So Srila Prabhupada allowed these practices. The dress somebody quoted, red, blue, green, something like that. Prabhupada did not pay attention to that. Guru Puja. When does Guru Puja happens? Nobody should be praised in front of the deities, isn't it? Nobody should be worshipped in front of the deities. And when does Guru Puja happens? How many of you remember Guru Puja happens after Darshanarti? Yes or no? When darshan have happened, then Guru Puja. So you can say, why to do this? Let have Guru Puja first, and then we can have Darshanarti. No, Prabhupada established after Darshanarti. Why? Because Krishna is more pleased when he sees his pure devotees being glorified. Padma Purana, the shloka comes where Krishna talking to Arjuna. Hey Arjuna, those who says they are my devotees are not my devotees, but those who are devotees of my devotees are indeed my true devotees. So these are some of the aspects and principles on this regard. We'll take this discussion further next time. We'll pause for today's discussion here. Hare Krishna. All of you having a nice Saturday afternoon nap. So, I don't know if anyone has any question or clarification, we can open the forum for discussion. To conclude with, to summarize, we saw the 10 items to be practiced and 8 items to be given up in the practice of devotional life. And that's what our discussion was. All right, Nitai Pran Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, in the 8th item, which was accepting only what is necessary.
Yes.
So when we come to the practical aspect of it, like for one person, having a little more may be necessary, because if they don't have that much, they may not feel secure in their life and they may not be able
Agreed.
to focus on their sadhana. So where do we come to that line that what we are following is correct and we are not just trying to accumulate more rather than what is needed?
We can never ever draw a line for ourselves. And we can never ever come to a conclusion if I have to make a decision for myself. This is a very important question, and it has to be always worked out in a discussion with our mentor, with the person who's guiding us, the person who knows us very well, or you can say the person to whom you have invested your heart in that relationship, and where a person understands your needs, interests, and concerns, because every individual comes from a different social background. And the kind of upbringing we have had, the kind of needs gets defined for all of us. Isn't it? So unless somebody understands it wholeheartedly, we cannot have a discussion. And when a person knows us, and then to take shelter of that person and take a guidance, then we can draw a line. But to make a decision on our own is very, very difficult, because for such questions, we have to always think out of the box. When you're into the box, you cannot understand what is your line. But somebody who is not into it, but is looking from outside, can tell you, this is enough. You can manage with it. And then a proper reasons can be given why it can be managed. So our Vedic Paddhati, our Vedic culture is, what is that? Dadati pratigrahanati guhyamakyati prachati bunkate bhojate chaiva sadvidi pratilakshanam. We should always, if we are fortunate enough, I would say in today's time, to have some relationships or even one relationship where we can do, guhyamakyati prachati, where we can hear their heart and where we can reveal our heart confidentially and can take their guidance and move forward. I would say such a person is certainly going back to Godhead. Because in today's time, what is missing is that sacred relationship where we can actually reveal our heart. That has become more and more difficult in today's time. So culture is working under the guidance. I mean, if you look at Vedic culture, even when a man and woman can procreate, even that was under the guidance of Guru, isn't it? Even that aspect was under the guidance of Guru. Every decision has to be made under the guidance of Guru. Of course, which are important decisions. This is an important decision. You want to attract the best of the soul in your family in that way. So the culture of guidance, the culture of consultation has to be created, and we have to have people who can give us that kind of support with us. All right. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, just one more quick one. Like you said, when someone, there is some tragedy in the family, then we are not allowed to go to the temple for 15 days. So similarly, when there is a birth in the family, then also we are not allowed. So what would be the reason behind that?
Now we are so joyful. Hari Bol, the beautiful face of the newborn child. And you're offering flower to Krishna, but you're not seeing Krishna. The face of the child is coming in front of your eyes again and again. So see, lamentation and exhaustion is the two opposite ends of the same swing, or the same pendulum. So therefore we discuss we should not lament and we should not get too excited. That's one aspect on the psychological level. And then there are certain discussion on the cleanliness. There's a certain amount of uncleanliness, etc., etc. Those details I don't know. I have not come across much in Prabhupada's writings, but definitely scriptures do talk about it that way. I try to understand more on the psychological aspect, because we are trying to become Krishna conscious, and that can only happen when our mind becomes Krishna conscious. So if anything troubles our mind, that's where I try to figure it out things. So that's what I can say on this. Somebody becomes too elated when you have a child, then that's where again the worship may get disturbed. All right.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Nitai Pran Bro, can you facilitate those others who have questions? Unmute them and add them to the screen.
So that was context of reading spiritual books. But what about reading of other material books, like for example, Power of Now, or not just self-help books, but even we might be inclined to read technical books.
See, reading technical books are okay. Self-help books, not okay.
Anytime I read a book like this,
Technical books are totally fine, because that is for your professional need. But quoting Power of Now, which is a self-help book, these kind of mundane books are of no good. You have the best self-help book in this creation, Bhagavad Gita, and where you know for sure one person definitely got healed, Arjuna. Now with this Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, except for him, I don't know who has got healed. Okay, so be careful. Don't get carried away or don't become victim of it. We should never ever get into the trap of this. This is all Mayavadi writings. There's not even a single reference of God. So you become more atheistic. The moment you think I can heal myself by my own strength, then you're given up the shelter of the Lord, no? And then you think I'm something great. I can fix myself. That's what all these books of Power of Now and the second volume and edition about the world, something was a book, I don't remember the name, etc., etc. All right?
now I saw that there is another point coming up about worshipping Ganpati, but say I had, for example, I take my example, I had consulted one devotee astrologer and he had suggested me to worship certain demigods. So now I know for sure my intention is not pure devotional service, which is mentioned in the upcoming paragraph of Ganpati, like worship Ganpati for pure devotion. I have, because I came to know that this is going to solve a material problem for me. So I have that desire. Although while praying, I might falsely pray that please, do this for the purpose. So how should we see this? Like, should we follow that?
Fine. I would share my point of view on this and what I have understood from Srila Prabhupada's writings and life. Srila Prabhupada at his time was very clear, nothing doing. Why? Because Srila Prabhupada wanted to draw everyone's attention to Lord Vishnu. One-pointed focus, because there was a lot of hodgepodge. It's not that there's less hodgepodge now, but when you become a little mature and understand the subject matter of scriptures, particularly when you read Bhagavad Gita, text like Bhagavad Gita, then you developed a different perception or a vision towards the demigods. When you look at a demigod or when you enter the temple of demigod, then you don't see them as an independent authority. You see them as subordinate authority who has been delegated certain administrative power by Lord Shri Krishna. So when you see, you don't see him independent. When you see him, you see the Supreme Lord. And then when you're offering a respect, which we should offer respect, they are advanced personalities, they're very senior Vaishnavas, we should offer respect. But now when we're offering respect, we're offering respect in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then it's totally fine. There's nothing wrong in it. Now when it comes to where the crisis happens, where people take them on the same level, or the other extreme of it, where we find faults with the Devtas. The both are extreme and we should not do that. Now when it comes to certain problem solving in one's life and going through the astrology and going through that, that is something has to be seen case by case. At large, if we want, we should discuss devotee astrologer, first of all. Second thing, what is that thing, what is there some special that only the Devta can take care for you and Krishna cannot do that? If he says that by the worship of Devtas, my particular problem in my life would be healed, that means that Devta is more superior and powerful than Krishna. Isn't it? So what is the need for it? So such kind of suggestion can only come from a non-devotee astrologer. In case of devotee astrologer, he would again bring you back to the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna. For example, Ganpati. We'll discuss about next week. But Ganpati. Now, traditionally, in all of our temples, Ganpati ji is worshipped. Why Ganesh ji is worshipped? Because he brings auspiciousness. So Prabhupada mentions here. What does it mean? Yes, Ganpati ji is known for removing obstacles. But who is the worshipable deity of Ganpati? Does anyone know whom does Ganesh ji worships? Madharati Manjari. Go ahead, unmute. What's the answer? Not Narasimhadev. Maybe not now. Next time, please remind me. I'll give you the story. Why Srila Prabhupada and in what situation introduced Narasimha prayers. So now we already have direct access to Lord Narasimhadev. And we pray to him for protection. Then why there is a need for worshipping Ganeshi? You getting a point? So that is the right attitude of working out. And somebody is consulting a non-devotee astrologer, then what can you expect? Again, this situation has to be seen on an individual basis. I have given you some general answer how to look at it. We have no need to go anywhere else because everything is provided to us. It's a question of right guidance. Yes, Madharati Manjari.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I wanted to know whom do we consider Shiksha Guru? Like, for example, getting Bhakti Shastri under you, so we consider you as Shiksha Guru?
So, Shiksha Guru can, correct. Shiksha Guru can be many. Shiksha Guru can be many. Just like somebody is teaching you something, let's say you study IDC under somebody, that's also Shiksha Guru because he's teaching you something. You're studying Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav under somebody, that's also Shiksha Guru. So Shiksha Guru we can have many. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnana Anjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitamena Tasmai Shri Guru Ve. Not Shri Guru Namaha. Guru Ve is plural. I am offering respects to all my gurus. Diksha and all Shiksha Guru. Now, we can have several Shiksha Gurus in different phases of life. We are learning different things because not one person can be expected to be knowing everything. You know, somebody need a matrimonial advice or marital advice, and there are certain people who are experienced in it. They may guide you, and different. So you need financial advice, and then other devotees would help you for that reason. However, we may have many Shiksha Gurus, but we should have one prominent Shiksha Guru with whom we reconcile what should we do in our life. Is that making sense? So you can learn from many, but we all should have one at least Shiksha Guru who becomes a prominent Shiksha Guru. What it means? That, okay, I learned from all, maybe I may take suggestions for what to do in my life. I finally do what I consult with this particular Shiksha Guru. I follow only his advice or her advice. And that Shiksha Guru should be mature enough to give you a space where you can take guidance from others. That Shiksha Guru should not claim, I am the only deliverer. I am the only deliverer of all your problems. You tell him, you have a bigger problem, you find a solution first, I am going away. If somebody try to capture you like this, you should walk away from that relationship. That's not the right person. So that Shiksha Guru should give you a space to go and venture out and learn from others. But as a matter of your relationship with that person being proper relationship and that person is mature enough, then sit back and discuss what should be the right course of action. Because nobody can claim that I know everything. As I said, financial subject matters, raising child, marital issues, spiritual life problems. So many things are there. Not one person can claim that he knows or she knows everything. Yes, that prominent Shiksha Guru can create help for you. Okay, he says, okay, or she says, okay, I'm not the right person. Let me guide you to this person. Then that's a good, proper standing of a Shiksha Guru. I'm talking about that one prominent Shiksha Guru. That way.
Prabhuji, my question is, we approach the one whom we want as a prominent Shiksha Guru, or the Shiksha Guru tells that I can guide you? I mean, how does it work?
No, not like that. It's a mutual relationship. How it works out, one thing is a student can approach and say, I would like to take guidance from you. That is the right way. Just like Tadvidi Pranipat, Pariprashna. The disciple goes and says, I would like to take guidance. I would like to take guidance from you. That's one way of it. Second way is, let's say you're part of certain community, and there they may have mentors. And there, if you feel comfortable and confident in a certain relationship, there you can accept a mentor. How I like to see the system and how I like to facilitate in my own life and also in the community that I take care of, the best course of action is, if it happens, is to stay in touch and to take guidance. Now it doesn't matter where you are. Internet allows us to bridge gaps. So the person who brought us in Krishna conscious, who knows us from the beginning, and he himself or she himself is growing and is mature enough, if that happens, I would say that's the best person. Simultaneously, as I said, if that person is mature enough, has himself or herself have matured in Krishna consciousness and have got proper understanding and have got proper training, that's the right person, because it's just like that person has cared for you from your birth in Krishna consciousness. The person knows you. But again, that person may not know everything. So for certain matters, maybe that person could be good in resolving the family conflicts, etc., but may not be the best person giving spiritual guidance. Then we may approach somebody senior for that purpose. So, it's a little, I don't know what to say one line. But I could say, if in case your heart, I would say it's a more matter of heart than a matter of head. If your heart is inspired, then you can approach so-and-so Mataji, you can say, I would like to take guidance, and then try to work in a relationship. But please give a time to a relationship. Don't be judgmental. Don't be quick on results. Just like Samsara Davanala prayers, what is that first paragraph means? Taking shelter of Guru means all my material problems ceases to exist. Samsara Davanala. So you cannot just say, Arey, itna samay ho gaya, abhi bhi problem khatam nahi hui. Or that's problem with your karma, not with his guidance. No. So that has to be seen in proper light, okay? Hare Krishna. All right. Hare Krishna. So thank you all for your kind attention. We'll pause here for today. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki, Srila Rupa Goswami ki Jai. Hare Krishna.